So the formula is to determine the diameter of your plank, to add your average width plus your height. Now your height is pretty obvious, but your average width is sort of a guesstimation. So if you look at the dotted line on the chart, that represents an average of the widest part of the vessel and the skinniest part of the vessel. So once we've determined the diameter, we'll then cut it out. So you see here I'm laying out to find out where the center of the square that I'll be cutting out is. Then we'll use our center punch to give a little divot in the center of our disc. And then we'll use our dividers to mark our metal. I like dividers over a compass because it gives you a more accurate line. Then we'll go ahead and cut out our disc. And we can either do it by hand with a saw frame, or we could use the Beverly shears. And a deep throat saw frame will assist you in this. Okay, then we want to file our edge, and you notice how I'm filing with the curve. Right, we don't want to be filing perpendicular to the edge like this. So this is what we don't want to do. Again, with the curve. This is our second option, the Beverly shears, and it's designed to cut curved lines. So the material will, as you cut it, will swing underneath the shear and allow you to cut curves. Now it can be a little difficult getting close to the line, so if I'm using the Beverly shears, I'm usually trying not to be on the line, but a little bit to the right of the line. And then after you cut it out, you can sand up to the line. Now I'll usually use like a disc sander or a belt sander to sand up to that line, just because if you use your file, it might take you a while. And you can see me here on the belt sander. I'm just slowly nibbling away at my edge till I get to that line. And after you sand it, you're still going to have to file it because of the sanding directions are going to be perpendicular to the edge, so you want to file it again and bevel your edges so you don't cut yourself. Okay, before you start raising, you do want to anneal your metal, and we could use the larger annealing torch. Right, if you're using the torch, see how I'm holding on to it? So I kind of hold it underhand and rest it up on my shoulder. It is a pretty heavy torch, so that'll take a lot of the weight off of your arms, won't get quite as sore. Okay, these are our raising stakes. They come in a variety of sizes. This is a really large one with a rounded end and then a sharper edge. This is more of a standard size one, so sort of a mid-sized vessel. Anything from probably 5 to 7 inches is good. And this is good if you want to create a vessel with a smaller end, so like a champagne flute or something like that. Okay, so our disc, what we've done is we're going to draw some concentric circles, and we'll do that with a compass. We don't want to use dividers for this part because the scratched lines won't come out. So a compass is great because the lead can be removed over time. And I'll put concentric lines about every 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, depending on the size of the vessel. And once you're done drawing your lines, we'll then next choose our stake that we're going to use. And choosing it's pretty important. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the first circle on our disc and match it with the curve of the stake. So you see if that matches. You want to match it as close as you can. You don't want anything larger. All right, like this is a little too large. You can see. All right, so I'll probably want something a little bit smaller. Okay, so hammers for raising, you could use either plastic ones like this, and they're usually come down to a cross peen contour, or you can use metal hammers. I prefer metal hammers because I think it compresses the metal better, and it also, you can see the hammer blows. These are probably my favorite two in the studio. This one is by far my favorite, and it's sort of got a squared off, rounded contour to it, a little bit of a crown right there, and your corners are rounded over. And the Penninghaus is a close second. It's a little bit lighter than that other one, but it's a great hammer. And depending on the size of your vessel, you know, you can choose, this is a lighter one, it might be easier for you to use, or if you're doing a small vessel, this might work quite well. For micro raising, I'll use tiny hammers like this, so it's got like a skinnier face. Now if you're doing larger vessels, these have a little bit more weight. So this one here is good for a pretty good sized vessel, so maybe anything over 12 inches. It's got a lot of beef to it. This one here has a lot of weight to it. It is a little bit sharp, so I don't like it for that. It's easier to thin out the metal, but it can work. And I've even seen people use forging hammers to raise vessels. It does have a cross peen on one side, and it works pretty decent. Okay, and again, before we start raising, we do want to make sure both our hammers and stakes are at a polished finish, because any kind of scratch or dent on either your stake or your hammer will transfer to the metal. So it's important to get them both looking clean. When you put it in the vise, you'll slide it in between in this type of orientation. So if you look at the tang down there, it's hitting the bottom of the vise right here, and so when you hit there, it doesn't wobble on you. All right, I'll tighten that nice. As far as how you stand, you want to stand so your shoulder lines up to the stake, so that it's in a nice alignment, right? That way you're hitting the material at a nice 90-degree angle. Right? Sometimes a lot of times students will stand at an angle, and you don't like this, and you don't want to do that because you'll leave angled hammer marks. Right? So when you hit it, you'll see all these angles. Right? And you don't want that. Okay, as far as orientation, I usually will kind of get a good, nice foot stance, right? Spread your feet a little bit, right? You want your elbow, when you strike, to be about 90 degrees to your stake, right? So at the point of impact. All right, so let's go ahead and start. Now, you see what I'm doing there with my middle finger? I'm sort of touching the stake so I know where it is. So now we'll start hammering down onto the material. Again, we're holding it at an angle. All right. And we're gonna go this first course really slow, just to really define that bottom shape. Again, that we're trying to put the stake right where that line is, using my middle finger to gauge where it is. And we're gonna create a little angle. So we create airspace, and we'll hit right above that line.